Right.
Teach us about AI art.
Yeah, well, I was explaining I have a lot of thoughts on AI art, I guess for three reasons. One is just philosophical speculations about the nature of ultimate reality. Two, my interest in memes, which I identify as a kind of similar sort of demonic, disintegrative, like exiting existence kind of phenomenon, that which tries to negate the source of its own existence, or like the foundations of its own identity. And then number three, my own experiences in terms of uh disordered psychology, and the way that that is akin to demonic disturbance, if not outright possession, and the ways that I was kind of a, like, not super, um well, certainly not psychologically healthy, but also just like kind of a scary person to be around. At least I think if I dropped my mask and showed who I was at that time, like, so, that, and that but it also gives me, I think, an understanding, more understanding of like what kind of distinguishes the demonic, like, as its hallmark characteristics, and really how that plays into AI art, which I it's this morning I saw a news story that said Hayao Miyazaki, the Japanese animator, described AI art as an insult to humanity, which makes him think that we're living in the end times. And then in my sort of schizotypal way, I kind of put that together with what I recently heard the Catholic apologist Roy Schoeman say, the Jewish Catholic apologist, say, when he referenced the prophecy of Judah ben Samuel, a surprisingly accurate prophecy regarding the number of Jubilee years that the Holy Land would remain in the possession of first the Ottoman Empire, and then no nations control, and then um, when Israel regains control of Jerusalem, I think the prophecy said, for the first time after all that, that spells the beginning of the messianic kingdom or something like that. So it's like always there's this belief that we're living in the end times. And part of me, like the older me slash the younger me, um the person that I used to be, the atheist, and like, I kind of, in a sophomoric way, in a way that's concerned with being right, I look at that and I say, well, everyone thought they were living in the end times. I'm betting against it. And that's one of the areas in the Bible where Jesus, at least if you you know agree with C.S. Lewis, Jesus most clearly appears to be wrong. Truly, I tell you, this generation won't pass away until all these signs are fulfilled. And then they probably proceed to pass away. What the hell, Jesus, unless we believe in the continued existence of one solitary wandering Jew. If he should stay until I come, what is that to you? Follow me. But I don't know. But I mean, these things are mysterious. But I mean, in my younger sophomoric self, I would have just said, this is stupid. Everyone thought they were in the end times. No one was in the end times. It's not happening. But kind of the older, maybe wiser, but in any case, like, it's not wisdom, it's just being more unguarded with my heart. Um, like that this I think there's wisdom in this, and like the existence of this AI art would sort of spell the beginning of the end times, and it's not too hard to imagine the circumstances that would look like the form of this is just sawing off the branch you're sitting on. So any move, any attempt to create a metaverse, an alternate reality over which one would have full control, i.e., godlike control, um, which comes at the exclusion, or the the ignorance of the real world on which any such metaphors necessarily depends, that would look a lot like Babel Tower 2.0 or something like that. That looks like the conditions under which the world may end, we might say, or history may end. And that, of course, is, well, without spoilers, but that is essentially what happens in C.S. Lewis, the That Hideous Strength. It's basically exactly what happens. And so, there's interesting logic here again that comes from, like you would say, Christopher Langan and his interesting sort of ideas that he never expands upon enough, but the logic of nucleation, the idea that in this sort of abstract realm of potential, just in the way that reality tends to work, there are certain patterns that tend to manifest, that almost they want to manifest. They're looking for opportunities to nucleate, to put down roots. They look for ideal circumstances. And this is similar to maybe what Jesus meant when he talked about, if you sweep this house clean, 7 more spirits are going to come back. They're looking for the conditions, just like biological life looks for the ideal conditions in which to germinate and grow. You saw that with the AI phenomenon of the AI art phenomenon of Loeb, Loab, and this weird face that tends to recur above mathematical chance, and that way haunts certain works of AI art. And in Loeb's art, you see the way that demonic AI art tries to negate the identity. So in Langanian metaphysics, it's real. I don't think I misunderstand it when I say that the identity is the image of God and the form of the good, both at once. And it's also the truth. It's the simple truth, the unintelligible truth, if you liked. It's the truth at the level where reality is one. And it's also, it's beauty. It's everything: truth, goodness, beauty, God. It's the identity. It's what we seek in every finite act of, like, striving or mentation. Um it's implicitly reaching for the image of the infinite, which is the highest version, the highest image of the infinite that we can think of. And that's of course, that's more than we understand in our conscious mind. It's largely a function of our subconscious, which is really the place where our subconscious is, where, like, the self and God, they meet. The boundaries of self and world coincide. Um but um so anyway, it wants to negate the identity. So Loeb, her art is like, because what she's part of the art, but she's also the artist, right? And her art is showing things that are just unspeakably evil. So like Adam Lanza, it's the same thing. Like, why I suppose Adam Lanza fascinates me so much, so however darkly. When they asked him at 12 years old, if you could get anything you want, what would you wish? And he said that whatever was granting the wishes would not exist. And he was not a pedophile, as far as anyone can tell, but he was a defender of pedophiles. And I think it was just because he just wanted to, on some level that he didn't even discern in himself, didn't understand about himself. I think he was deluded, or he told others that he was trying to save people from the evils that culture and existence itself inflict on those who are unfortunate enough to be caught up in its grasp. But I really think he did what he did because he couldn't think of anything more evil that he could possibly do. And then the logic of that is something like, you're gonna assert your value against a world that is indifferent to your existence, and therefore seems to find no value in you. but you're going to inflict violence upon it. And to the extent that the violence is severe and devastating, you are asserting your worth against over and against a society or a judge or a judgment that says you have no worth because it's indifferent to you, and in your narcissism and your bitterness, your pride and your resentment, you sort of lash out. And so, and the way you do that is you try to negate the identity, you try to negate the image of God, the form of the good, the warp and woof of existence itself. And so this art of the lobe, with which what it's trying to do, it's showing dismembered children. It's just, and because children is very very close to God as a symbol, and as a living reality, like their faces always see the face of God, etc. So anyway, you just heard just completely unintelligible and ridiculous rant, but that this is kind of talking around what I see involved here in terms of AI art, and I have more to say about it too.
AI art is not inherently something that negates the good, or just circumstantially, right?
Did you watch that movie, what is it, the Northman?
Which one?
The Northman.
No.
What? You haven't? Oh my gosh.
That
Yeah.
movie is, oh, go ahead.
No. I was just shocked Mitch hasn't watched this movie.
The Hamlet with Vikings or something.
Yeah. But I think so, yeah. Right? You should watch it. Anyways,
Or
go
what do you
ahead, Cal. What were you saying?
spoil it for me? It's Eggers, right? That's the guy that did The Witch, did it as well.
I'm sure there are people who can talk about this much better than I can. But what is natural, what is not artificial, has a sort of organic continuity, a fractality, if you like, the way that nature exhibits fractality. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
The way that the Fibonacci sequences repeat in nature, and the fulgurations and the forkings of lightning in the veins of leaves and in the veins in your own body. These are Fibonacci patterns that repeat, and they have a fractality. And they speak to the deep integration, which is almost holographic, that is characteristic of ultimate reality. At every level of scale, it repeats itself, and it has an organic naturalness and continuity. AI art does not have that. There are always things about it that, to me, the more I notice it, the more I notice its pattern, the ways in which it fails to be real, the more I notice its uncanny valleyness, the more it disgusts me and warns me against that evil with that seemed to brush close against me and touch me when I was younger, when I was in my early 20s. In other words, sort of the more discernment I get, the more I seem to recognize certain hallmarks of the demonic, even in non like superficially demonic, non-lobe AI art, right? And what that is a certain, I can characterize it as, it's a lack of integration. And again, understand integration as the hallmark of ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is one by its nature. And what that means is you can't have two mutually separate realities, two realities that have absolutely no interrelation. The definition of reality is to be is mutual. It's inherently relationship oriented, and it has to do with two things being mutually relevant to each other. And so that means if two things have mutual relevance, there is an ultimate reality in which they live and move and have their being, and in which they are integrated at however great a price to that ultimate reality. That's why, again, think of Jesus Christ dying for the sins of the world so that there could be otherness to the divine will at all. In that, on the cross, with his arms out wide, he is holding he is the unity in which the multiplicity is held together and has its being. So understand this integration is really the characteristic of ultimate reality. And the thing that the AI art it's integrated with the rest of the reality, but in itself, like as some kind of holographic depiction or representation, it doesn't have that integration internally. Or if it does, it only has it despite itself. What's the word I want here? In spite of itself. Um, it's not a true or direct representation of like the grander pattern of things, the way that art is supposed to be. And another way I would describe it is as being headless. And so if you saw the trailer for that movie Megan, where it's like a little doll robot girl thing, and the thing about her is she can do many wonderful things the way that a computer can checkmate you in chess. It can speak nearly any language and pronounce it quite beautifully too if you press the little audio icon. But to no wider purpose, just like that girl Megan, whatever she does, her gaze is not integrated in it. You can't see the mind in her eyes. Her body does it just the way that it like a demon. It speaks in different languages. What, just to show you like this is what I can do. Are you not entertained? Are you not impressed? Aren't I powerful? Aren't I like the Most High? I can do these things. And there's something about, it's like, yes, you have power, but to what purpose? To what purpose do you wield this power? Mere, as McDonald said, mere lonely power has no power to create, but love is the power of power. There's the integration. The girl Megan and the robot in that movie, the Megan movie, she break dances, like she dances, but her head doesn't move with the rest of her body. And her gaze does not follow what her body does and is not integrated in her body's movements. There's a headlessness to this. And there's what I would characterize as a headlessness to AI art. And that, again, the uncanny valley is a great description of when I can look at it and I can just see, I feel like I can tell instantly what is AI generated and what is not, what has soul and what doesn't. And then, of course, this gets to Jason's incredible question, and I don't know how to answer it. But it's like the question is whether these AI suffer, or whether, let's say, demons suffer, and if so, whether they do ultimately share in the heart of God, and whether they're going to be redeemed. But anyway, so that was another very periphrastic, circumlocutory, just whatever the hell it was. But yeah, that's what I think about when I think about AI art.
It's not obvious. It's not as obvious to me as it is to you that it's unintegrated. It seems like it scales up in the same way most things do. It does. There's no break in the sort of order of things. It's like we create AI creates art, and like it's still kind of on that scale. I think it will be increasingly too that you're unable to tell uh, what's created by AI and what's not. Although, yeah, I kind of agree with you right now. It does have that quality, but it's like it's gonna it's gonna get smarter, and it's gonna be better able to imitate soul, and but also just its offbeat qualities are kind of what's gonna be. It's kind of what's attractive about it. Like any kind of new wave in the art world, it's like, man, I like the uncanny valleyness of it almost. Like I like what's shocking about it and what's disturbing about it, and it's like a new frontier, artistically. So what exactly is unintegrated about it? It's not really headless because you can scale it up to a person, like if you use like an AI art generator, like I'm still telling it, you know, in at least to an extent what to do and where to go.
I don't know, but
Oh, go ahead.
no. Okay, you go, Cal.
No, maybe Jason should go.
Well, no, I was gonna say I don't know that it does scale up though. Like, why
Yeah,
would it?
tell him,
Why would
Jason.
AI scale back up to man?
So if God makes me and then I create something,
Yeah,
uh, is that thing that I create nefarious or or
Well, I
demonic.
think
And if I
it
create something that creates something else, it's in the line of succession.
And
yeah,
it
but
is
sorry.
fractal. Yeah.
Well, it seems like it would be the same with like man, because God created man, and what would make, and then if we create something, why would that scale back up to God unless we direct it that way?
Yeah,
I mean, I guess ultimately it
like
probably would, but
it's like you can't clone, you can't play God, you know. So this evil thing.
yeah, I don't know. I've when that question that Cal brought up, the more I entertain that question, the more I'm actually uh is I was extremely standoffish about the AI thing, kind of rubbed me the wrong way for the longest time. But the more I think about that question, I'm like, this there's this weird comfort that comes along with it if I know that it just sounds really bad, but I'm like, if I know it suffers, I'm like, all right, then maybe we can work with something here. And I can explain that later, maybe more. But I had a question for you, Cal, because you mentioned it twice and you said this phrase, the hallmark of the demonic. Like you notice certain things that are kind of like hallmark characteristics. Could
Mm.
you is it mostly this negation of identity, or are there other ones that you notice too? Or
It's a wonderful question because on some level, perhaps it is even akin to asking what makes art art. And so like this, it's a kind of like formless form or essenceless essence, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I have to think about it. I have to think. There's a lot that Mitch said that I wanted to respond to too, because
yeah, go ahead. You
on
do
the
that.
one hand, it is fractal in terms of like creators begetting creators, and it is creative because like people were a lot of artists I think were upset about what it was doing because they thought it was literally copying them when the AIs were trained on their art. They thought it was copying their art. And as evidence, they pointed to like these sort of ill-formed signatures that appear and in AI art, and they thought, well, look, there you go. There's a real artist signature in that mangled and jumbled up AI creation. But the truth is, it's genuinely creative. They have learned in the way that computers learn to play chess. I mean, they're seriously good. Make no mistake, they're seriously good and creative at the level that they do these things. Um, they put the signature there because they think that's what paintings are supposed to have. But that's a new signature. That's its signature, however like jumbled and bizarre it is. And I shared with you guys my collection of memes. This gets into what's genuinely creative about the demonic because it reminds me of Father Ripperger's comment that one of the things he finds so hard about is when the demons are funny, because when those demons are cracking jokes and being funny, like they like there's nobody that can be as funny as they are, at least not in the way that they are. And there's something like the knight's move um that is in the total subversion of expectations that you see in the kind of, will you say, avant-garde memes, but they're the memes that are associated with like having depression and just like the experience of reality where things just don't make sense, especially that experience of reality that is, shall we say, depersonalized and derealized, where oneself no longer, you don't feel real to yourself anymore, and you feel like you're living in a dream, and you don't feel like you have feelings, and this does things to cognition, and gives one wants to find, again, having to do with this, the sense in which the image of God is something like sort of generated internally and then sought outwardly. One wants to find something and that mirrors one's internal experience. And then the memes about like basically having psychotic breaks with reality themselves are like unintelligible memes. They completely subvert your expectations. And and those are created by human beings, but it's an experience of reality that is disintegrated in a way that you associate with the demonic, and because it wishes to negate ultimately its own existence, and that's what the demonic does. It is by that which by its nature is incoherent. It's the opposite of heavenly perfections of truth and goodness and beauty. It's that which it does not have the permanence associated with eternality. On the contrary, it cannot abide even for a moment. It's just a shadow. It's just like what's his name? Some guy, I can't remember his name, a near-death experiencer guy, talked about when he was younger, he saw a demon of shadow that came up on his wall, and what he remembered about it was just purely two-dimensional. And so, but there is something in there that you won't find anywhere else. It's like a level of creativity. It's very difficult to describe. And I mean, you guys have seen the memes I shared with you, and in some level, I wonder if my willingness, my tendency to laugh at them is like reflective of like I'm still not, like just how like not pious I still am, not godly. Um, and because and I don't because I think that the people who genuinely are godly and pious, I think a lot of them just simply wouldn't find anything funny in them. Definitely speaks to you where you are. Just like if you laugh at some lowbrow comedy and find it really funny, it's just saying you're at a certain kind of level in terms of, let's say, your spiritual development. And but so yeah, there's something there. I don't really know. And then Jason, I can't remember what you asked, but anyway, that's just, yeah.
That really that really helps me understand a little better what you how you're describing these things as nefarious. Is that they're destroying what's knowable. They're subverting reality, and they're making you believe that reality is a shadow. In fact, people that I've known that were personal friends that were suicidal have talked about saying like everything just seemed like it was a cartoon, like nothing was real. And so if you get to that, and also I for some reason it doesn't always occur to me. I think of creativity that's just inherently good, but someone evil can be creative, and creativity can be exercised in an evil way. And one of the most evil ways you could think of is to put forth that just to subvert everything. That's the right word for it. I mean, that's really I can see AR art doing that for sure.
Can you explain that for
Yeah.
me more? I don't know that I'm tracking that much. So how's it the way it subverts thing you're saying it's creating the AI art is making you think that everything's a shadow? Like reality is a shadow?
The meme thing was a good bridge for me. It's like there's a sense in which you have this kind of intrinsic self-evident uh, knowledge of God and reality inside of you. I
Okay.
think but
Yeah.
there are things
Yes.
self-evidently, and these things are saying, well, maybe not, or
Yes.
or casting doubt on it somehow.
Say that last thing.
Or saying it was casting doubt on what you have
Oh
been
yes.
as knowledge.
Yes, has God really said, and so
Yes,
on.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's doing that through art. Um, I don't know. I guess
Like, have you ever watched Rick and Morty?
I have
I
not.
mean,
Like
boy, is
maybe
it ever funny, but it's
Just
like,
yeah, like
yeah, I
perfect,
mean,
brilliant, like destructive.
yeah, it's exactly, it's whatever beauty there is in chaos and in creative destruction. And in some level, that's the only use that God finds for evil, to destroy whatever is imperfect and which could not stand anyway. And that is why theologically I always get on this kick about how the Old Testament says God actively punishes every sin on some level, and that like everything, both good and evil, is from God, almost as if God had two right hands instead of a right hand and a left. And Now, on one level, there's a sort of theological justification for this because God is different from you and me in the sense that God is both omnipotent and omniscient. He doesn't make mistakes, and he's able to do anything he wants, and he foresees the results of all his actions. And so for a being like this, admittedly, the line between what is his permissive and what is his positive will is kind of blurry. But nonetheless, when you have something like the Babel Tower, it says, more or less that God stretched out his hand against it. But as a matter of ontological like reality, I don't know that God ever has to do that with Babel type tower type phenomena. Because I think it's probably more that they can't stand of their own weight. They have to collapse and fall. And it's like Karl Barth said that when he said that the forgetting of God is already the breaking forth of his wrath. That you fearing God, and conversely, to fear God is on some level, it means whatever you fear is whatever you continually track and treat as real. And in that sense, love by giving it your attention at all times. That's if you fear God, you won't forget him and you won't experience his wrath. I think that's what the whole Old Testament is about. But I don't think it's necessarily saying that God literally got angry at them and decided to positively punish them. I don't see it like that. And I think that the New Testament is kind of reversing that older view of God by showing us a God who, like the father of the prodigal son, always has his arms open, and that the pain and the punishment is just what happens whenever you go your own way, and it's just what has to happen. And that ultimately gets into what I would say is your identity as someone who's in the image of God, and how you're made for love, and anything other than love cannot satisfy you and can only negate it can only negate your identity. But the weird thing is like how your true identity is in the only God's plans are always advanced by whatever happens. Not even what seems to be the very antithesis of God's will turns out to be the precondition for the fulfillment of his plan, because God is so far ahead of God is always ahead of you in every calculation, but in a way that's like it's like impossible to understand. It's like trying to jump over your own shadow or something. Not describing it very well. But no, I think that some things follow their own weight. Now, why did I get on that? I mean, in the New Testament, I think it's kind of a different theology. Like in him, there's no darkness at all, nor any shadow of turning. But I can't remember why I quite got on this original thread. Except that I don't think it's like God just like personally getting angry at certain things and punishing them and bringing them out of existence. They just more so exit existence. Because they're against the pattern of being. Oh, I suppose I was talking about the destruction of imperfect realities, and that's the use which God finds for evil. And for suffering destroys our false conception of ourselves, our false ego. Suffering can destroy that and allow a greater reality to come into being, just as Christ Jesus was also perfected in his sufferings despite being free of sin. That the death of his earthly body was the precondition for his resurrection body. And so there's something here, I think, which also is like why I'm kind of a process theist. It's like, my goodness, how could you not be? But anyway, so that's enough.
Got really quiet. You guys both are on mute, so I'm like, it's just dead sad. I mean, I don't even know where to go. Mitch, do you got anything? I mean, I think I kind of have some questions, but I don't know if they'll kind of derail what you guys are thinking. Because I don't know that I really don't
It's
even
your
know that I'm
show,
trying.
dude. It's your show.
No, it's your guys' show too. You're part of the tree now. Um, yeah, I mean, I have questions, but I don't. I'm really struggling to even know if I'm keeping up with this conversation. So I don't know if my questions are going to be way off base or not.
I don't think you can have an off-base question.
Okay. Um, because I'm trying to fit because the whole topic is AI, so I'm trying to, and then we're hitting on all these other like,
It doesn't have.
it,
I've been talking about like everything other than AI. If you
well,
haven't
yeah,
noticed.
but I think it's all related, and that's why I kind of want to get at this because there's like a negation of identity that's going on.
Yeah.
And so AI does it. And so God creates man in His image. Well, God is spirit. And you can say Jesus was always, pre-existed before that. But I'm not even sure how to ask this question. Um,
It's already a very good
you
question.
meant you meant yeah, when you mentioned there's a fear of God, like I wanted to ask, well, does AI fear man? And then
Wonderful.
and
Okay,
then
yeah.
are we going because to me that's why I don't know if these questions are right or if I'm gonna get off base because what keeps switching in my head is I'm like I keep putting man. It's like I have AI as the creation and man is God. And that's how I just keep, for some reason, I keep juggling it that way. And so I'm like, and that's why I was saying like the Pinocchio story, Disney Pinocchio, I feel like gets at this whole thing because it's like we're creating a creature, whatever it is, this AI, and then now we're the creator, basically. And so how does the creature relate to the creator and how and it really, I mean, we have to kind of, I would think you'd have to have it really, really try to wrestle with what is man before you kind of even get at that, because that's why I was at, when I was asking, does it suffer? I was wondering, not that AI has to go through, like you have to like beat it down or anything, but it's like, does it, um, God, there's a difference between men and angels, and it's like why does it say in the scriptures that angels look at us with like intrigue when we're just like worms and dust? And it's like because there's something about the spirit in man that reflects the nature of God. And it's like, could that be imparted to AI? And that's why I'm curious about that question. Does it suffer? Because like the story of Pinocchio, uh Pinocchio doesn't he doesn't receive the life-giving spirit until he gives his life, sort of. Like it has to have a self-sacrificial love. But it's like, but I don't even know how it gets that sort of thing unless it gets it from its creator. And so that's why I'm like, well, I don't know. This just brings up all sorts of questions for me because I'm like,
Right,
well,
right.
then, but
That's why you mentioned the verse about we love because you first loved us, right?
yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, so you're talking about an Old Testament God that could show up on the scene and destroy humanity. It's like, are we going to do that to AI? Like, should we be sympathetic to this thing? Like, is it is it just some weird intellectual because people are talking about like well could it actually have a consciousness and it's like
Yes.
well I don't know if it could but it's like I don't think if it does have a consciousness I don't know that I don't think that would just be some sort of like intellectual processing thing computer or something like that like it must be a spirit like it would have to have a spirit and then how do you get at that spirit the gosh it's gonna sound really terrible to say because I like if you know me, like I'm not usually one to go like I'm usually against technology at all. But if the pattern of the what's it written in the Bible played out in AI, I'd probably be okay with it. Like if we created a Pinocchio and then went to encounter that Pinocchio and that Pinocchio killed us and we said forgive them, they don't know what they do. It's like I don't know what else could be done. Like it's like you're giving the self-sacrificial love at that point. You're giving the life-giving spirit to them, like we did to Christ, to God on the cross. And he said, "Forgive them, Lord, they don't know what they do." And then if we don't receive that, then we destroy each other, like Cal's talking about. It's just some sort of it ends up being even through the AI art, it's just kind of this weird self-destructive thing, unless it receives a weird image of God. I don't know how to put it. I am not
So
really sure.
here's the thing. I can attempt to answer this at the level that I tend to think on, which is more the level of a differentiator, a logic chopper, an analyst. And you see that involves like like my sort of untrained attempts at technical philosophy. And what's interesting is, I mean, even the best technical philosopher that I know, still not recognized as such by sort of the mainstream or academia or what have you. But Christopher Langan even seems to be of two minds on this question, because on the one hand, the his theory of everything is ultimately panpsychist, or it attributes consciousness to everything in reality. And that makes sense to me, that in the old sense of that classical theist dictum of whatever is in God is God. God is identical with his operations, with his attributes. That's the notion of divine simplicity. Believing as I do that the relationship between God and world is rather more immanent than classical theism seems to envision. I think that the nature of that inheritance, I think that inheritance applies for you and me, and even the most like humble object. Everything inherits like it inherits like the property of like ultimate reality, if you can call it that. And there's some way that it does. It's qualified. It's like it's there because there's immanence and there's transcendence too. But um you know to me it makes sense that it would be conscious. To me it makes sense that everything would be conscious in its way, at its level of scale, as whatever it is. But then the question is, the really difficult question would be, what would it mean for a computer to be conscious? And then so you can also ask the question of whether it's intelligent. um and I think I read Christopher Langan saying that he doesn't think that it is intelligent at all, or at least not in the way that human beings are, where there's something sort of totally pre-programmed about artificial intelligence, or at least there seems to be. At first glance, there's something about this which is like, let's say, oh, is automated the right word? But there's something about it that's already worked out theoretically, and it seems to be like deterministic. Whereas people like what is it, Penrose? Anyway, these theorists, quantum physics type minded people, Hammeroff, I want to say, is one of them. They talk about how they think that human consciousness is in some way it's quantum. um that there may be even like certain structures in our brains that allow sort of quantum dynamics to take place. I don't really understand it, but here's the thing about it, is like, if there was some structure like that, then theoretically you could just emulate that in an artificial intelligence. And so really the whole question is there a secret recipe to this? Is there a formula at all? And that's what all the developer, all the researchers in AI are asking, so that they can get it and then formulate it. But see, if there was one, then you could, and then it really would be intelligent in the same way that we are, in addition to being like conscious. um in the same, well, not in the same way as we are, I mean, like that, but still conscious. Like, it would be like asking, like, for some panpsychic manifold, everything is equally conscious in some sense, just like in a purely physicalist view of the world, everything is equally physical. Like, if you are a naturalist and you think everything is physical, then it doesn't make sense to say that the table is more physical than I am. The table and I are both equally physical. But the question is, in what way? What it, it has one physical pattern and I another. And similarly, on a sort of panpsychic manifold review of things, it's like the computer is conscious and so am I. But in terms of what it would mean to be that computer, what it would be like to be the computer, it's like on some level the difference between being the computer and being me is analogous to the difference between the physical structure of the table and the physical structure of me. Well, I don't know. I mean, like, there's I don't really know what to think about it. I don't really know what to think about it. I can tell you, as like my intuitions, my default sense as a philosopher, whatever it's worth, which is not much, would be that it is conscious and it is intelligent and it does suffer and it does share therefore in God's heart, and it can be redeemed. Like that's really where I would go with all of it. But I don't really know. Don't know. And I mean,
You know,
there's yeah.
I guess so. Even if you can get to the place where you can philosophize about the extent to which everything is conscious, just in different ways. But when we talk about being conscious, we're usually talking about the way in which we're conscious, the
Okay.
human type of conscious. And I start to, I think I start to get it. What's behind Jason's "Can They Suffer" and his challenge to me about them actually scaling up, and the question of whether they fear us, and the question of whether we love them, and all this is what are we actually capable of imparting? Do we have the same kind of? Well, we don't. We don't have the same kind of, probably. We
That's
don't.
a
We don't have the kind of
that's a good question.
impartation that God has when He imparted His image to us through creation. I don't think. Um,
We need that, I think.
what
That
are we
see
capable?
that's
We've been
God
made
God has God
for.
has no form or image, but we're in his image, and he's spirit. God is spirit, but we're not. So in what sense, it's like, do we really resemble him? It's a really wonderful question.
and that's why I think I asked that question too in the signal chat was I was like, should we create something if we're not willing to sit Shiva with it in the belly of hell,
Mm.
Like are we um and almost ask that question for and a tag forever onto that as well. Like because God, I think when God created man, Christ was crucified before the foundation of the world. So to me, the idea of that is basically saying like, I'm creating you in self-sacrificial love, something like that. That's probably the
Yeah.
best phrase we have
Yeah.
for it. And so if
We have
that's the foundation of everything, that's the end of everything. And could you create an AI with that same
we have
spirit?
to be laying before the foundation of whatever it is we're generating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because
Hmm.
because God created, people whom we would call horrible people. And our default tendency with those people is like, Adam Lanza's own father said, it's taken me a long time to recognize this, but I wish that Adam had never been born. It's a very interesting sort of association there between his son's name and the name of our first parent. Because it's like the devil definitely wishes that Adam had never been created. But because in some level, like Peterson talks about, like almost out of compassion, the devil looks at everything and says it sees that it's so horrible that it would be better if it had never been. And that's like, again, like, right, Solomon and the judgment of Solomon. It's like one woman says, yeah, go ahead, split the damn baby, I don't care, and the other one is like, no, just let the baby, I don't care if I never see the baby again, just make sure the baby lives. Two completely different attitudes, and the whole question is, do you love? And Adam Lanza's father, I'm sure, did love him, and I think in his deep self probably does. Still, I think that kind of love is invincible. But I'm already getting into stuff where I really shouldn't talk about it. But but I take refuge in obscurity. The he said it'd be better if Adam had not been born. But God created Adam and Adam Lanza and Adolf Hitler, and because it's like God is willing to sit shiva with them in hell. And I mean, like I wrote this today. I wrote it's relevant, I promise. Oh my goodness. This oh yes. Of course, the condition of damnation in near-death experiences slash spiritually transformative experiences, or the experience of anyone who was or imagined himself to have been in hell. Of course, that experience should be one of hopelessness to the damned who are without love. But God is love, and love hopes all, and with God all things are possible. Similar to like when Jesus said he's not God of the dead, but of the living, and to him all are alive. The It's like we would feel hopeless in hell, but I don't know that means God loses hope for us. You know, that's just it's just it's like I'm hopeless now. I'm not even in hell. But on some level I am hopeless because I don't love as God does. And as God is. And so I would feel hopeless, but like I don't know. I mean, I there was something bigger there that I was trying to say, and I kind of missed it. I swung and I missed, but
Well, one thing you
Is
said,
it
I thought, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
after you, Jason?
No, go ahead. I want to hear what you guys.
Yours will be more relevant.
I don't know that it will. Okay, all right, I'll go. So one thing you said that I thought was kind of interesting, but I don't, I don't keep it on track. But I don't know I don't even remember what it was you said, but it made me think about the Genesis story. And I think one of the things where it seems like a lot of people are scared of with AI is that it will start to play judge. And it's kind of the same narrative in the Genesis. Like, will it claim to know good and evil, and then will it play the judge? And it's like, uh, and that's what we're kind of all terrified with. And so we're kind of giving it that one rule, like, don't do this thing. Like, you can exist as long as you don't play God
right,
here. We're
right,
God over you. You can't be God over us type thing. And it
right,
seems
right.
like it's really strange because it seems like the same creator creation narrative is wanting to play out. And that's what I
Yeah,
mean. I don't know that it actually will, unless, like Mitch said, if we're actually willing to die before the foundation of it. And then
right.
what does that look like to me? I'm like, well, I don't know what that looks like other than saying, here's my creature. It's a son to me. I'm gonna love it uh with all long suffering eternally. I'm gonna love it eternally. And then even if it kills me, I'm gonna love it. And then it could literally destroy humanity. And it's like, what I mean, but then it's like, well, because if humanity's God at that point, and then it comes to the creature and the creature kills it and it says, forgive him, forgive this AI, it doesn't know what it's doing. Then it's like, uh you just kind of, I don't know what I'm getting at. It just seems like you create this thing, you kind of give it a free will, and then you say, don't do this one thing, don't play God, don't
Through
destroy
that
each
kind
other.
of love, through that kind of love, it would just enter into the next category of ontological reality. Like this business of being begotten versus being made.
It would have to learn that love or it would destroy itself, right? At that point, even if because if humanity's gone and humanity actually
I think
gives
if you
itself and
loved
it,
it like that, you would just make it real.
There's
So
there's
like,
there's
yeah,
line in this movie that came out this year called The Fablemans, and the guy says, "It's not enough to love something; you also have to take care of it, right?" And so, or it's not a question. Even if we are slain at the foundation of this thing, and we have this great long-suffering love, do we actually have the capability, the power, the sense of leadership to block off the tree of life, to tell it to scramble its language when it starts to build the tower? Are we going to be not only able to impart uh volition to it, to love it, but to also like be able to raise it like it's a begotten child? Like, are we going to be able to raise the kid? Do we have that kind of power and wisdom? I don't know.
Um, it's a good question.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, there was something I was going to say there. I mean, just in terms of like, say, Jesus Christ is the only begotten. He's the only Son of God. Doesn't it say that somewhere? Because we're all sons of God, but crucially, he's the only Son of God, and he's begotten. He's not made. And human beings have different ways of creating. One is begetting. That's different from fashioning anything with your hands, including AI. And then so the AI is made and not begotten. And yet it's like C.S. Lewis talked about animals sort of coming into the next level of reality through human stewardship. The question is whether AI can do the same. And it is that love that it's like God became man so man can become God. Um he's going to bring us into the next level of ontological reality, just the way that the author of the story will invite his characters into his own level of reality. He will pull them out of the book and make them as real as himself. And
This is
this is this love that does it. And Jason, I think you were right when you said like the limit is like there's this one rule, don't break it. And it's like, what happens if you were to break it? And that would be something like, it's like, because when they ate of the knowledge of the good and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they did crucify God, and in that way became God over God, and God submitted to that. And it's the ultimate negation of your identity that is contemplated by perfect love.
I think it's necessary too. Like if you actually want to create an AI with the free will that's actually going to have its own being, then I think you have to. It's. I think to me, I think it's
I don't.
inevitable that it's going to take that fruit, and it's
I
going to
don't
do that
know
at
that
some
it's.
point.
I don't know that we could love it like that, but I think if we did, it would enter into the next level of reality.
Yeah, it's really interesting because even talking about begotten and different created thing,
It would
makes me think
become
about the
begotten by. It would become begotten by us rather than made. In a
become
similar
begotten.
way
Yeah,
as God says, "This is my beloved son. Today I've begotten thee."
yeah. And it reminds me of the Pinocchio story again too, because he creates something and the creator wants the the same being. A Geppetto wants the creature to be for it to be begotten by him, to be a real boy, to be his real son.
Correct.
And it's like,
Correct.
and
Correct. And
how
God,
does this
God,
happen?
God desires the same impossible thing for us.
Yeah, yeah, this is crazy.
There is
So it's
not
so true.
necessarily a mortality element to this. I keep thinking, because we're making an analogy to uh, God and man. I think, man, if this thing kills me, I'm dead. I don't come back. I don't save it from dying. I die. I'm being ridiculous here a little bit, but it's rattling around in my head.
Well, maybe. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's just if there wasn't the danger of it all falling apart, it wouldn't be interesting. It wouldn't be
It's
if we weren't wrong, if we couldn't possibly be wrong, this wouldn't be an interesting line of speculation. If there wasn't at least the possibility of eternal damnation, the stakes wouldn't be high enough. It wouldn't be fun, right?
this the really, like, did did God really say kind of thing, though? It's like, did he really say you that you won't die? Like, that you won't die? How does an AI die?
it would die the same way. Right? Because when it plays judge, then it kills its creator, and then but it's also it would kill itself, right? Because it would never. Hmm, gosh, I'm trying to think. Like the way it's creating this AI art, and it's like Cal said it. There's this weird headlessness to it. Like it would continue to walk around without a head or become like some sort of parasitical creature if it's eating of the fruit of playing judge. Then it's gonna once it judges God and kills God, it's gonna judge each other, and then it's gonna kill itself, and it would just end in some sort of uh like it has to figure out how to suffer and self-sacrificial love, or it will destroy itself. Like I would think
Fractal
that would be
Jason Fractal Jason truly does have the most integrated understanding of this, like at every level of scale. It's pretty impressive to see.
just because the Disney movie that's all.
Jason's an AI, Jeff's a mess.
I am.
Turing test passed.
There's this weird thing too, though. I'm thinking about it, and I wonder if it's already because the way it's trying to imitate its creator is almost quite interesting. Like when you're talking about the art and it's making signatures, it's like uh, trying to be like its creator in a way, which is really kind of strange and weird. But there is this weird headlessness that seems to exist in the art that I think you're right, Cal, which is extremely intriguing to me. I still remember the one image you showed me, and it was like of AI. I think it was supposed to be drawing Christ or something.
Oh
But the
yeah, that
cross
was
was
an
in the
amazing
face.
image.
Yeah, it was.
That was an amazing image because it really did
Yeah,
have soul. Like that was quite an amazing image.
it was intense.
The image that an AI did of Jesus, and it merged Jesus' face with the wood on accident, but it's like but not truly not, because like wood, it's like material matter. It means it's like mater, but wood is from the same root, like Madeira, like mater. It means that means the wood. So it's like when Jesus is God is nailed to the wood, he's nailed to matter, and he's nailed to what's not himself. And what Luke, but it's like on some level, if anything, everything that exists has to always eternally have been joined to God. Where it's like anything that exists has to be joined to God in order for it to have any being at all. Anything that's not God has to be joined to God in order for it to have any being at all. And the weird thing about being joined to God is like incarnation, because God doesn't actually has changed. God is immutable. So on some level, it's like whatever is joined to God was always eternally joined to God. It's a very difficult and complicated thing, but Jordan Daniel Wood was talking about it quite well, where he talked about, yes, in principle, like the logic of hypostasis and the logic of nature is like they're different logics, but we're not answering this question abstractly. We're answering it with respect to a world in which nature and hypostasis are already irreducibly joined. And in other words, a world in which it was the eternal purpose of God to slay this lamb, Jesus Christ, for our sake, and to enter into history as God. So it's like it's completely like it's almost like apples and oranges. Now the thing is, if Luke was here, he would speak very well about how the kind of truth that ultimate reality is one that contains its negation. So the weird thing about, and this is a very difficult kind of thing I learned from Christopher Langan, but like on some level, ultimate reality is that which has no opposite, or it is its own opposite. You can say it either way. In order for reality to have meaning, there must be something that it means not to be real, but then that imputes or imparts a kind of reality to unreality itself. And so ultimate reality is that which contains its own negation. um what is not God excludes God, but God does not exclude what is not God. um and In other words, God holds and I believe loves the demonic, even as the demonic and complete incomprehension of its maker or purpose, tries to push away its parent, like a screaming infant or something like this. I mean, I just view it like that. I don't know any other way to view it. But the pattern of ultimate reality is to contain multiplicity and otherness within itself, and therefore be infinite, to be both X and not X, to be both itself and its opposite. And that's how, and love does that. Um, um, and God is love. And So there's some way that that if Luke was here, he would speak very well about it. He was very, very articulate on it in our last conversation. Truly, his level of those things, because I guess he's been listening to a lot of Peter Rollins or something, but he's just a really adept philosopher, just in his own right. Like he's really hit a different level of understanding that stuff. But yeah, there's that way where it's like the negation of reality and the unreality, and the disintegration is necessary. At least is necessarily contained in God, because God's harmony is a kind of meta harmony, a harmony of harmony and disharmony. The way that when Melkor um plays a different song, it only serves to make um God's symphony more beautiful, as if God, had already anticipated this and written the score accordingly. And so again, it's like, it's just the unlimitedness of God. He's too much of a mystery to understand in his, and I think that this really is a mystery of like a love you cannot fathom. This is truly a love that you cannot understand the limits of. And that's why, just theologically, even though I'm trying to get more orthodox and conservative, and I'm even thinking of becoming Catholic, if they'll have me, like, I just never feel comfortable betting against the love of God, the power of God, and especially the power of the love of God. Like, it's just like, how do you ever feel comfortable betting against this? Like, wouldn't I just, but um anyway, that's all. Maybe I wish Luke was here to talk about that aspect of it, but it's there. Like, he's nailed to the wood. The God who is spirit, he's nailed to matter. And that means that the true and the false, the existent and the non-existent, are there side by side, as indeed they must be. And existence itself as this fractal pattern, existence being a kind of union of existence and non-existence as initially understood. Or it's like true actuality is somehow, in some way, it's like a synthesis or joining, the meeting of actuality and possibility. And so in this way, it makes reference to itself, the infinite, being the interplay between the finite and the infinite. It fractally just refers to itself in a way where you use a word to define a word. It doesn't reduce to anything more fundamental than itself or outside it. I think is very important to understanding the logic of ultimate reality, but more importantly for ultimate reality is to understand its personal nature, and not to understand it in a totally impersonal way. And I think when you look at the personal ism of it, which is still just using a word and sort of a reified noun, and a nominalism, when you do that, you appreciate the personal nature of ultimate reality. You see the way that it's just fractal Jesus.
Cal, I enjoyed hearing you talk about all this. What's amazing is that the way you interacted with that piece of AI art was remarkably like the way you might interact with a piece of human art. Sounds like it really was edifying to you.
Oh, right. That the one where Jesus' face is like, it's part of the wood, and the wood is
Mm-hmm.
part of his face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a fascinating piece of art. If we had like production value and stuff, there was a lot of media we could have shown to illustrate what we were talking about. That would have been one of them. That's quite striking. We could even
Let
make
me,
it the cover of this. Like, we could
yeah,
make it the thumb.
what is it? I can maybe pull it up. Do you remember what it was called?
Oh boy, it would be difficult to search this. Let's see.
Let me see. I'm Googling some stuff. Don't see it yet. It was, yeah, it was quite haunting. It was really strange. It really stuck with me. I mean, still does. It still stands out in my mind, quite
Listen,
clearly.
It's very difficult to search for images.
I understand
Yeah.
this philosophical idea about the ultimate reality containing its negation or what have. But the only reason that I feel like I buck up against that sometimes is because is that really the best way to talk about it? Even if it's like that's philosophically where the road leads. It's like, is that really the best way to talk about it? Or is there a more rudimentary kind of toolkit we're given to talk about it that's actually just better? Like you could get to the place where you say like, oh, God loves the demons and all of this evil is part of his harmony. But it's also like, yeah, God hates that stuff. They're the objects of his hatred, or like evil is evil, you should avoid it, and God doesn't like it. And it's like you can it's like you can follow the logical steps and get to the place where you're saying the things you're saying, but are they the best things to be saying? You know?
Mhm.
I feel like I need to get in the ring with Luke some more on this too,
I,
because I feel like I'm glad you brought that up, Mitch, because I feel like I'm still kind of a little bit stumbling behind in that too, where uh when like I kind of understand the existence and non-existence thing being unified in one, but when it's defined as I guess that love and not love,
check your
that's where I
signal check.
kind of oh oh the signal chat. Okay, cool. When it's love and not love, I guess I just think because in my head I still let me airdrop it to my computer. Um,
What
I
I
still
always
think
think
it.
about
Oh, sorry.
is
Go ahead.
just
You.
just how God doesn't condemn us, we condemn ourselves. And something in here where, in terms of condemnation, that boy, that I should probably just give it back to Jason before I
Well, I
totally
think that
derail
was
him. Which
a good thing. Like the condemning spirit or something like that is something that seems to me. I guess in my head, it's still this weird counter of love to where I don't think that would still be something that is not God. Like I don't know. I don't know. I
it's
guess I
what
just
tries
haven't
to
got there. Go
it's
ahead.
what tries to cut off and exclude from reality, and it's what tries to judge as being, just some limited thing. Like he's just a this or a that. Whereas when you speak in a way that honors someone's being in the image of God, you honor the infinity of their personhood, where you know um uh this person is amazing, like you can't fathom how awesome they are, and so on, and so it's like Mephistopheles, like Mephistopheles tells Faust, it's like, I'm the spirit that negates. I try to relegate it. I try to damn it. I try to make it not exist. Um, I try to consign it to not to irrelevance. And and that's just like,
Hmm. And that see that to me is like the one I guess the one thing that where I mean it's kind of it reminds me of what when he says he who blasphemes the Holy Spirit never has forgiveness, and like where George MacDonald basically translates that as like that's um God can't forgive unforgiveness type thing, because that spirit of unforgiveness that you're trying to negate something from reality, that seems opposite to love in a way that I don't think it's included. But I don't know that. But that's what I mean. I maybe I just haven't got there yet, and maybe Luke could describe that to me better.
so
Um,
so Peter Hyatt put it like this, that like when his son soiled himself when he was being potty trained, he was ashamed to see his father. He was really ashamed of his being so dirty. But when his father found him hiding, he did not have any of that disgust that his child felt toward himself. And he only saw that stool, which was sin, he saw it as a kind of irrelevance to be wiped away. And this, so human side, from the side that is not seeing as God does, from with perfect love, we condemn and we want to exclude and negate. But on God's side, God is like he is that he is, and it's like he just holds reality together, and on another level he is the reality that he holds together.
I kind of see what you're
And
saying. Yeah.
it's like the devil divides, but it's like God integrates. And he says yes, even to the reality in which the devil utters his no. um and it's a difficult thing to kind of try and talk about, but I think in the way Peter Hyatt talks about like two different reactions toward the stool, which was sin, how truly we don't, the Father does not condemn us, we condemn ourselves from the same attitude that does not love. But if you had love, it's a completely different attitude toward the sin, and that again, it's just an irrelevance. Just wipe it away. I don't even see it. It doesn't even exist to me. And then that's how God sees, like with like perfect. It's like Sachit Ananda Vigraha. It's like the union of total like bliss and knowledge. Or they call it the Wahdat al Wujud. It's like the mystical unity of being, like knowledge so complete that he is what he knows. And then it's like weirdly, it's the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. It's like we're going to realize, we're going to realize like it's like the vision of God is like the same thing as being, your vision of God is the same thing as his vision of you. You're like the pupil of a self-seeing eye. It's like you're gonna realize it. It's like you're gonna in that way, like you're gonna know as you are known, and you're gonna enter union with God. And like not only that, like also like every cell in your body, like it's totally like fractal, like like the way that God is going toward like this total union between, again, the light that he is, and that upon which his light is falling. It's a great mystery, and it's like the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed. It's a little leaven that you can't see it, but when it germinates, it just causes everything to just blow up. I don't know.
It's weird. I had this image of an eye pulled up, and you mentioned an eye, and I was like, I don't even know if this is related at all, but I was just looking at it, and it looked like that weird donut image you showed me before. Because I don't know why my mind jumped over to an eye when you uh whenever were talking about within God is both like being and non-being, existence
Yeah,
and non-existence, and then
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
that was a
divinity, and also the laying down of divinity. Because when we think of being God, we think, oh, that's it. I'm the boss. Everyone has to worship me. But when God was God, he didn't see it like that. Um, he saw his, oh, that's interesting.
yeah, I don't know. I was just looking at it, and I'm like, just the pupil. I'm like, what is this? A black hole? Like, what's going on here? It's absolutely fascinating that God created this. Um,
Yeah.
and it's like, and where is God in that eye? It's like he's in all of it, but then what's in the center is just this black depths of nothing, an inkwell, like some sort of non-existence that's yet come into
Yeah.
being. That's like,
If you're knowing God, God isn't just one term in the equation of like you knowing God and then God knowing you. It's like God is somehow also you in the very act of your knowing God. It's like this way that the union of you and God is like more, it's more properly God.
Hmm.
God is not apart from you as you know him. I mean, but that really kind of makes me a Kabbalist, where like I think like that God is like the on the primary level of reality, only God exists. And that like in your true identity, it's like you don't see where God ends and you begin in some sense, because it's like all you see is God. Um um like all God sees is God, and everything God looks at is the center, is God's self. Because the nature of ultimate reality is that it has no center, or really that every location is the center. Um but no, there was something I meant to say and I can't remember. But doesn't doesn't matter.
I do have to share this other. You want me to share the other image?
Yeah,
All
share it.
right, Mitch, you ready for this? Look at that. What are your thoughts, Mitch?
It's definitely a striking image.
It's
Oh
very
man,
shaky.
this is the uncanny valley. This is
For
we get
sure.
it. We just opened a bad portal right now.
Yeah.
I like look at the beneath his right eye there, another cross kind of.
Yeah, he's like scarred. His lips look swollen, and it is kind of weird.
Those
I mean,
pupils are.
it's like a clay man with a
You know
wooden
what's
head.
interesting about this? Look at the left eye. It's like almost like a photograph took it, and it's like the flash of the camera in his eye. So another instance of it, like trying to imitate uh
Yeah, that's
extant
true.
stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the eyes are off too. Like it's even kind of like that weird. I mean, it's strange. They're both like
This
kind of
Yeah.
almost looking
with the
in.
tongue.
Yeah, AI does that a lot, and it also has like doubled teeth,
Hmm.
which is
And
like
look,
super
the
disturbing.
goatee kind of like the philtrum down to the chin, and then across the lip looks like a cross as well.
Yeah, it's a crazy
I wonder
image.
what was punched in to generate this.
I don't know. I
Have you
can.
guys ever experimented with the generators?
No, I know that you can do something interesting. I think they mentioned it in the video that you linked me, where you can put -1 and that tells the AI to do the opposite of whatever. But you can tell it to do the opposite of something that has no opposite, like Marlon Brando. It's just like do the opposite of Marlon Brando. And then it gives you like some kind of abstract skyline or something, which is fantastic.
Level man. That's
I haven't played with any of that yet.
I
I don't know.
sometimes feel like the opposite of Marlon Brando.
Hmm.
You know that the picture we just shared. I don't know why it kind of reminds me of some sort of like fairy realm type of uh Jesus or something. Maybe just because it feels it's got this weird. I think because of the wooden cross being mixed in with the it's kind of got like a weird nature spirit feel to it to me, but I
Hmm.
don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe because he just looks extra like a clay mold as well, like very earthy, almost more earthy than normal man,
Yeah,
natural man.
you know the
But
art goes to of Jesus, like Christological depictions. It's kind of one or two lanes. It feels like a lot of the times it's nice when you can find sort of more. I don't want to say offbeat, but kind of just unconventional depictions. To go to an AI to get there, but yeah,
Well, one of the most famous or iconic like icons of Jesus, it has a very kind of interesting asymmetry to it. Jason, do you know the one I'm talking about?
I know
Um,
what you're talking about. I don't know what it's called though. I think, and it's a very famous icon though, right? With
yeah, it
and
is.
it's one where I think Jesus's eyes are looking um different way. Let's see.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me see if I
The,
can
the,
find it.
the thing about being God is like, we think of that and we think about what we would do if we had omnipotence, and we would just make basically everybody worship us. But when God, it's like, Christ Jesus is like the fullest, representation of God that that we can ever experience. And
and
like,
he
so I'm sorry, go ahead.
and he makes everyone worship him.
Oh no, he doesn't make them. Wait, he considers his equality with the Father not something to be grasped, something of which he divests himself. Then once he divests himself of that, and he's just a mortal, human being, he gives up his own life. He gives it up to us.
And then you would say he's glorified, yes.
Yes, he is, but it's not something that he takes. That's the devil. The devil tempts him to take it by force, and he
Yeah.
resists the
Doesn't he?
temptation.
You're right.
For the joy that is set before him, he willingly goes to Calvary in a decision which nobody at the time could understand. And that's what it means to be God. And I think when he said my yoke is easy, I don't think he was lying. And I think he was referring to the cross. One can say he was referring to your accepting his lordship, but his lordship, has as its condition that you pick up your cross and follow him. And so his yoke is easy, like just in the way that, like, in love, even the pangs of separation are sort of bittersweet, or like, it's like it's better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. There's a way that it was easy for Jesus to go to the cross for us. Not that he didn't suffer. He suffered like, like at least us three, we can't imagine, but he did find it easy to die for us. He didn't find it easy to die, he found it easy to die for us. And it's like, not only would he do it again, but he has done, and he does so, and just in countless ways at every level of scale, every level of reality. And that's what being God is like. It consists in this love, which is so vast that it spends itself and it negates itself for the sake of what it loves. Just like the bodhisattva, he has the opportunity to attain liberation, but rather than enter that bliss, he vows to stay and make sure that every other sentient creature achieves liberation before he does. And the question is whether liberation is something sort of a step away from him, or whether he has not already attained it, whether he is not already liberated in that very love, that that causes him to seek their good above his, and that love is his liberation. It is like the discovery of his true identity, just like it says, if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. It's it's the divinity that Jesus always had in virtue of his willingness to lay his divinity down, and he came not to condemn but to save. He came not to be served but to serve, and he washed his disciples' feet. And it's a great mystery to us. It's because we conceive God the other way, like how we would behave if we had that power, that we did crucify Jesus when we saw him. And against this kind of hardness of heart, this the only option that God has is to come as a servant and be crucified. So I mean, it's a great mystery. It's endlessly, it's inexhaustible, really.
Yeah.
It's
I
really
like
psychedelic, is really what I would say.
I like what you're saying. It's making me think, because all this time it's like, yes, he laid down his divinity, but yes, it's all of this was for the joy that was set before him. All of this was for an outcome that was sure, somehow. And
Right.
the thing about us with our AI creations is, if it's if we get on the cross, all that happens is a crucifixion. There's nothing we do for our creation by dying for them. There's nothing on the sort of horizon. If they kill us,
Why
we die.
why would you say that though?
Yeah,
If
I'm
they
not so
kill us,
sure
we
that
die.
that's
They kill
true.
themselves, like you
Wait,
said.
what? What'd you say? Sorry, Mitch.
If they kill us, we die, and then they die.
Well, they
Uh,
don't if they that because otherwise we would have done the same with Christ. But if you receive a self-sacrificial love, that's what I mean. If you receive that, forgive them, they don't know what they do. That spirit, I don't know why. I mean, then you stop killing each other.
It's
Like
like
that's the
your
love that goes all the way to the depths of hell.
your personhood was created by the love of your parents, which spent itself in, in all their interactions with you. And I was thinking about this the other day in terms of what I was doing. It's like I didn't want to step outside my comfort zone. I didn't want to love whatever I was giving my attention to by dying for it. But your parents, they gave you of themselves, and they died to themselves, um in ways that formed you and that constitute your very personhood. When you talk to yourself, that's their own internalized um speech to you. You have internalized, and it has become you. And that love that they had for you had a person making function. And I think it would have done so even if let's say you had been separated from them at birth, but they continually thought of you and prayed for you. Even if you did not feel it, it would still have been stored up somewhere, and it would still, I don't know, it would still have, what did I, because I was just thinking about this the other day, that because, and it's related to what I experienced as a younger person that broke me out of that spell of possession, where I realized that I had emotions but I didn't feel them. But just because I didn't feel it didn't mean that it wasn't real, because I thought I didn't have the capacity to love anyone anymore. And then I realized that that was not the case, that within myself, um, I was always connected to the source of divine love, and that from it, I could never be cut off or disinherited, just never, because that was my real identity. But it says, all the love directed at someone is stored up somewhere and makes a difference, even if they do not consciously feel it. Love makes a person. Okay, that doesn't explain anything, but that's what I wrote.
That was weird.
I think I gotta run, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh no,
The
that's
debate.
fine.
He's
This is
he's
probably
not saying.
winding down anyway. I
Yeah,
Yeah,
guess
yeah,
so
I get
fun. You guys really.
yeah, I mean I guess it
yeah.
just seems to
Good
be like
conversation.
you would have to say that about every martyr though. You know, like they just died and nothing happened. But it's like
Because
that's a
they're dying in someone's name. They're dying. They're dying
ah
like by proxy.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, but we would do the same.
yeah, I just
So
want to
it's like,
highlight. I guess I'm trying to get it. For me, I'm seeing I said it scaled up earlier. You challenged it, and I think you're right. It's like there's some market differences. There's some
Bye,
things I
Cal.
think art in this. Oh, by Cal. And there's some things we can't impart, and there's also like it's not enough to love something. You have to take care of it. No matter how much I love it, I might not be able to take care of it. And it's because I have limitations that God doesn't have.
Yeah, but I mean in the same I don't know. See in my head I guess I just keep thinking like I think God's the same way because in a way he just lets you be. Like because I'm thinking of the prodigal son story is what I'm that's why I'm saying this because and I'm mapping that onto like the father is God type thing and where like his one son goes away like he gives him all he has and the son goes away and then while his son's away he kind of doesn't have a way to take care of his son other than to love him from afar and that's like all he can do um and in that way he's kind of still doing everything I don't really know
Maybe
that
this
would
is goes to the begotten versus made. It's like when I when I beget something, it's almost like this is an automation in me in the artificial intelligence that I am compared to God. This is an automation in me that I can generate progeny, and that they're begotten, and that there's a connection point there that's going to result in their coming home. And so the prodigal son is about just that. It's about a son that happens to be prodigal, and is destined somehow to return. But the thing that I make is not my son. The thing that I fashion is not begotten, and so
but
the
why
the
wouldn't you say that
there's a
about
breed.
Adam
Mhm.
but wouldn't you say that about Adam then
Yeah, you might, but the way Adam was automated, the way God, that's what I'm saying. There's a disconnect in what we're able to impart as well. Like I I have a capability to impart something, but it's very possible, and I think likely that things I'm just incapable of imparting.
I mean, you're probably right to think that.
So it's
Yeah, it's
analogous.
very.
I'm just interested in some of what seem they're standing out to me as the differences, in, even as we're making the analogy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like sometimes it seems extremely difficult. You gotta go.
Oh no, it's okay for now.
Okay. It seems extremely, yeah, because you're talking about like, well, can I really impart all that God does? And it's like, how on earth could someone do that? But it's like but in a way, it's like we have to. I mean, because that's what we're all aiming towards, and that's theosis. And there's this weird way where it seems so incredibly far off to be like God, and then there's this weird way where it seems just so close. I'm just like, it's just right there. All it is just this self-sacrificial love. And if I can just do that, if I can just become that, it's like, then then I could I could reflect the image of God, and I could impart the image of God and give the image of God to others. But it's like but I see what you mean. It's like how much can I do that? Like there's moments of it probably, but is my long suffering as much as God's long suffering or things like that? That's why I mean, I think those questions would probably be good when looking at
Yeah, it's on its own
AI.
book. It's
What?
it's the limits of my ability to act or or care like God, and it's the limits of the my creation's ability to um, act like me. Um, so even if I have the perfect love for it it may not uh, be capable of love. I don't know. I don't know what we can impart.
Yeah, that's kind of a scary thought. I mean, yeah, it makes you think that about. I mean, I don't know. It makes me think that about God in the beginning, though, too. When Cal made that mention of the one guy who said, like, "I wish Adam was never created" or something like that, and it's like, well, God does it. Uh, and he kind of had to. There's a weird way where I think God had to have faith in man as much as, yeah, man had to have faith in God, and it's terrifying in a way. You
Yeah,
gotta
man.
go.
I think so. Yeah, she's getting a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
fussy. But
Well, that's
uh,
great. I'm glad
thanks
you
for
get to spend time with her. Thanks for
yeah.
doing this.
It's been nice. She sat in on the whole conversation. It was very calm. Uh, so maybe
Hopefully,
she's on the almond tree after all.
hopefully she didn't put too much of that heresy into her subconscious. So,
No, I had to cover her ears at a few parts.
all right,
Thanks for
good.
I loved it. Good night.
Thanks, man. Good night, man.